the power of equity as a word, it's precisely the fact that it will never be strictly defined. It's a matter of understanding fairness. And I cannot define fairness. No single one of you can do that. It's a negotiation between us. The fundamental entry point of the descriptive approach is averages are not useful in understanding reality. Now, what do we do with the descriptive approach? This is where the analytical approach comes in. Once we have distinguished, we need to understand what is the relationship between the two tails, or anyway, the different groups of our inequality analysis. And what we expose in this, that very often poverty, as we define it, is a necessity within our current patterns of growth. Because in many ways, the drivers of inequalities and the drivers of prosperity tends to be the same. You know, you're talking about cheap labor, cheap energy, cheap natural resources. Those are both drivers of prosperity for few, as well as drivers of poverty for others. And, you know, unfortunately, when you take the example of the relative role that the flour industry has in this country, and the particular conditions of labor within that industry, you immediately see what I mean. The other important element of the analytical approach goes back to that analysis of power structures. Because when you analyze power structures, and therefore you see that social groups are hit by similar and multiple types of inequalities, you also realize the limits of sectoral policies. Because if you take a sectoral policy and you think that you're going to change the condition of small farmers or small fisher folks only by addressing their market access, for instance, or only by accessing, you know, improved education, one single piece, fundamentally, it would be very, very difficult to change the nature of that power structure that they suffer within society. And this also means that the matter of inequality, therefore, is not a matter of social and economic policy. It's a fundamentally matter of governance. There is what I call a replace-all approach. The many organizations, many communities within our sector, I'm not talking about Kenya here, I'm taking a global perspective, they basically have decided that inequality is the word to go, is the buzzword of today. So what they've done is they've selected all their documents, they did replace all, and whenever they had poverty, you replace and put inequalities. And you are good to go. Many organizations simply want to think that, you know, poverty is inequalities, and therefore we are talking the same thing. In reality, we are not. Because if we continue to be focused only on the bottom end of our distribution, we're not talking inequalities, even if you use the language. But this is domesticating the language.